Okay, yeah. So let me crank through this pretty quickly. In any case, a big part of what I wanted to do was just to talk about, a lot of us hear about keywords and I hear everybody mentioning keywords and so forth. So what I wanted to do, along the lines of generally, what I do in the past is really just to build a framework so that we understand how keywords play with respect to the websites that our clients are working on. Talk about the importance of search, the importance of keywords, and then the importance of keyword research. And then I'll quickly run through a keyword research and content writing case study. So quickly, the number of websites in the world. Since 2001, websites have grown from the one website, the World Wide Web on infocern.ch, to now over 1.8 billion websites, and that's growing, okay? In fact, this year alone, to date, we have about 1.994 billion websites, and that's a 6% growth from last year, okay? So how do our consumers or how do our clients stand out in this very crowded environment? Well, the key for that really just comes down to the importance of search. When we look at traffic acquisition to our clients' websites, you can see that 27% come direct, 6.4 come through social, 3.6 through referral, 1.2 through email, and then less than 1% on display ads. The majority of traffic to our consumers' websites is really through search, 61%, which is why search is very important. So when we're looking at search, then the key obviously is search, right? And we quickly just look back and we look at the history of it. Essentially, you might remember some of these names, but the big bad in all of this right now is in the beginning, when Archie really started, a lot of search has just been tweaked and been finessed until we're now dealing with Google, all right? And in fact, the reason search also is very important is because 95% of people use only the first results page to make a decision on whether or not they're going to engage with a website. So we look over here, and when we think about search in general, why are we looking at Google? Well, that's because Google is responsible for 92% of the search volume around the world. So when we talk about search, we really just want to understand how does Google work and how do we game the algorithm, so that we can help our clients figure in a Google search. Well, did you know, just in general, that Google was first called Backrub when it was started for its link-based ranking algorithm? Did you also know that it was renamed as Google as a play on the word Gogol, right? Or 10 to the power of 100. Now, just FYI, will anyone overtake Google? Essentially, that Google does about 40,000 searches a second. Competitors have a steep hill decline. And since the start of the year, there have been over 1 trillion searches since the start of 2022 on Google itself. All right. So why is this an unrealistic goal? How many of you have heard your clients say that what they want to do is to rank #1 on Google? We hear that all the time. Let me just say, just across the board, that is an incredibly unreasonable goal. Okay, because ranking #1 on Google is actually impossible. You have to rank #1 for a search query or for a search term. And that's why we're going to be talking about keywords. So what's the big deal with keywords across the board? Well, if this is Google's mission, okay, our mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. This is our customer's search mission, which is we want to help Google organize my information, meaning your client's information, and make it universally accessible and useful. In order to do that, we have to take into account that a big thing that we need to do is search engine optimization, which is, you may remember from what I said before, the process of improving the quality and the quantity of traffic to a website or a web page from search engines. This is different from Target's, primarily unpaid media, right, which is organic or natural, as opposed to direct or paid media. So when we look at a hierarchy of SEO in its complexity, you remember the last time I spoke to you guys about SEO, I discussed crawl accessibility, getting a great user experience, fast loading speed, ease of use, and so forth. And then talking about the title, URLs, and descriptions of your websites. This just very loosely gets described as technical SEO. What I'm going to talk about today will be the other parts of this pyramid, which is essentially keyword optimization, using that keyword optimization to create compelling content, and then using it to create content that then is share-worthy. Okay? So that's pretty much keywords and content as we move forward. Now, the role of keywords in search. keywords are a reflection of search intent, right? So what we have to ask ourselves is, what is the potential customer or consumer looking for? Are they looking for help, for specific products, or for information? Okay. Because ranking hinges very heavily on search intent. And you may remember I discussed this before. There are 4 different search intents. The first one is informational, which is the most general. Then it slowly moves down into what's called commercial investigation, which once they've found their targets, they start comparing it with others. Before searches go into what are called transactional searches, where they're looking for more involved, aspects and more involved factors before they make a decision. And finally, the most targeted search is what is called a navigational search. Brand searches, the intention is set, usually a very specific website or product or service. Okay. Now, when people are searching, search intent, of course, is highly dependent on the keywords that are typed. Okay. Now, people will hear a lot of terms like long tail keywords and so forth. And basically what this means is that the fewer the keywords that you type, okay, the more the volume of the search. Okay. And in essence, the less the involvement in the search intent. The longer the phrases, if you would, that are used, okay, the less searches tend to happen, and the more specific and the more involved a person is in searching. Right? So from our standpoint, what we need to do is we need to start with a consumer need. Okay. In other words, we try to avoid generic or short tail keywords because, as you can see, a lot of search volume occurs when people are typing in generic and short tail keywords. And we want to make sure that even when we're using Google, okay, you want to ask your clients to feel free to write out phrases and multi-word combinations. Because what we want to do is try to optimize and pick out, quote unquote, the best possible keyword and or keyword phrases to encourage engagement. So when we look at this, what does this mean? There is high search volume, there is low competition, there's low search volume, and the relevance, okay? Because what we want to see is key, to helping select the winning keywords is what keywords are the most relevant to our client's business, which of them have sufficiently high search volume, and which of those keywords have competitively low competition, which means if I place for those keywords, I can actually rank, right? So our clients really have to be in this area over here. High search volume, okay, low competition, essentially. And how do you do that? Okay. You can go ahead and use a free tool called Moz Keyword Explorer, okay, which is when you go ahead and you type in a keyword, this will give you the monthly search volume for that keyword, the difficulty that it has to rank, okay, the organic click-through rates, and the priority that Moz uses for that specific keyword. And you can run that over any number of keywords and look at keyword suggestions, okay, look at the search engine results page analysis to see how that keyword, once typed in, starts showing up on a web page or on a search engine results page, all right? You can also use Google Trends, okay? Google Trends is really good to assess keyword search volume. It's great to choose the best term when we're talking about synonyms. For example, if we look at COVID-19, coronavirus, COVID as a term, when you look at the volume just across the board, the best term over time is actually to use COVID as a term. But there was a spike using coronavirus as a search term, okay? So this is a good way, again, free, Google Trends, right? You can also use Google Trends to assess keyword search volume, just from an index standpoint. So if we look at terms like air purifiers versus air humidifiers, this is telling me that if I'm in that area, I want to use air purifiers instead of air humidifiers because that's what people are searching for, all right? You also can use, again, a free extension, Chrome extensions, like in this particular case, Keywords Everywhere, right? Which when you type in, I typed in air purifiers, you will see the trend data, okay, of the search all time. Not only can you see that, you can see the difficulty to rank, okay? You can see the off-page difficulty, which is the difficulty of finding backlinks, on-page difficulty, which is the difficulty for it pretty much to be figured out with respect to, again, competitive terms, all right? You can look at trending keywords for what I typed in and related keywords as other words that you could come up with, okay, to test. You can also see what people also searched for, and then some long tail keyword suggestions. All of those are terms that you can then start writing down, because then you can start seeing what the volume is against against relevance and so forth. One thing that people fail to do is use Google suggestions. Now notice what I've typed here. Is an air purif, and all of a sudden I was given suggestions by Google. Okay, would these be good long-term keywords for you to search for? And basically what Google is doing here is it is suggesting for me based on volumes of searches, what it feels I should go and use. So in this particular case, I'm looking at, is an air purifier worth it? Because that came up on top, right? You can also find and use a program called Also Ask. And when you type in air purifiers and Also Ask, and you'll get 10 searches in a month, okay, basically. As you can see, I typed in air purifiers and it gives me questions that people are asking regarding air purifiers. Okay. These are search intents that people are seriously just typing in, curiousing about. Okay. You can use another free tool called Answer the Public, okay, which will give you those same questions. Okay, in this particular case, it gets exported as a CSV or an Excel file, which I'll use later on. Okay. So now that we've used all of these free tools to find keywords, what do we do with the keywords? Now I've got keywords, right, that I want to use. And where should my keywords be placed? Well, interestingly enough, once you've sort of decided on the keywords you want to use for your client site, the keywords will be placed in the title, they will be placed in meta descriptions, they will be placed in subheadings, okay, H1s, H2s, okay. They will be placed in the content, which I'll describe later on. They will be placed in images or the alt text, okay. They'll be placed in the URLs, okay. They'll be placed in link anchor text, social media, and finally, NAP, name, address, phone number, citations, and directories. Okay, so as an example, in the page title, this is where we show it, professional freelance writer and blogger in the page title. Okay. In the meta description, we can just go ahead. This here is a description, okay, of email campaigns, successful email marketing campaigns. You want to make sure that your keywords are reflected in the meta description. As it shows up, this over here is what is called a search engine results page. Right?
Yeah.
You want to put it in subheadings, H1s, H2s, because if you are organizing your keywords in a way that the Google engine can understand what the subheadings are, you have a very good chance of showing up in what is called a featured snippet. Okay,
which one
is what this is. Okay, a small box that Google decides to place on its
the McAfee,
depending on the search quality, right? And this is one of the things that I try to have my clients do when they're creating content, so that their content shows up in a featured snippet.
Here's an idea.
In content, you want to make sure. Now, notice here, growing your business, how to grow fast, drive incredible growth. Keywords don't always have to be literal. Okay? A good part of it, thankfully enough, is because the engine is now grown, you know, to understand contextual wording. So the whole idea here is, in fact, you want to just make sure that you're using growth, as you can see, driving incredible growth, and just reflect that in your content. Okay. In images, what does that mean when I say use keywords in your images? A big part of this is highly dependent on using what are called alt text or alt tags, okay, which is coding, you know, that pretty much describes an image to a search engine spider. As you can see over here, when you're using alt text to describe an image, all you want to do is describe an image as you would to a blind person. Over here for the URL or the Uniform Resource Locator, you want to make sure that if you're using your keywords, you're using it correctly. As a key from this standpoint, if you're using your keywords in your URLs, use dashes, okay, like here, growth hacking. All right. Finally, in link anchor text. Okay. Link anchor text is pretty much when your URL is featured, okay, in a link, and you're inviting somebody to click on it so that they can come to your website. So you get what's called link juice, okay? You want to make sure that the wording that you describe includes your keywords, right? Now, interestingly enough, obviously, when you click on that, what's going to happen is you'll get a URL that should look like this, okay? But at least in the link anchor text on the copy of, you know, of somebody else's blogs, wherein you want the link, you know, you want the link juice, you want to make sure that your link anchor text uses your keywords, all right? Obviously, in social media, okay, with hashtags. And finally, in what are called NAP citations, directories and citations, okay? Because this here plays a very big part in local SEO for everybody whose clients have physical locations. You want to make sure that the keywords are placed correctly in their Google business profiles or any of their NAP citation directories. Okay? So now that we've got that and we've decided, now I found my keywords, I know where I'm going to put them all around my website and even outside. How do I use keywords to actually write content? Okay. Because remember, a big part of keywords was actually developing content that you can use. Well, what you want to do is you go ahead, go into Google and search a high volume keyword phrase. Remember I targeted, is an air purifier worth it? So I went ahead and I typed that in, right? I type it in and I find the first article that shows up. In this case, number 1. You see here, do air purifiers work? I look at that and I click on it and I look at the date. The date says December 16, 2019. This means that this article that showed up number 1 is ripe for the picking, okay? Because if I can create an article, that's more updated, Google, the algorithm will actually favor my article better because of the recency of it. So then I look at it and I'll look at all of the headers and subheaders, H1s, H2s, H3s, and normally they're nicely written out. Okay. So now I know what the headers are, okay, that Google likes. Google likes this article because it answers a query, it organizes the information in a nice, easy way. Okay. And I want to mimic that if I want to supplant the position. Okay. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to use my, keywords everywhere, okay, the Chrome extension to try to see where do those words, okay, where are they actually using the words? The title in an H2, the title in an H2 heading, the title in an H1 heading, title H1 headings. And this is the density of usage of those words throughout the article and the number of occurrences, okay? So now I'm getting idea, of the number 1 article, how are they using the keywords that they had identified and how am I going to use that? Now I look for the rest of the top ranking websites. I look at website number 2 and website number 3. Okay. And I'm just curious. I want to see how they are organized. So number 2, are air purifiers worth it? Do we need an air purifier? The word count 2100. It was updated in January of this year. And here's how it was organized. I looked at website number 3. Do air purifiers actually work? The word count is 1997. It was written last year, okay, and this was how it was organized. Fine, good, this is easy, all right. Now I've got an idea how the numbers 1, 2, and 3 articles for that search term are organized. Now it's time for me to use that information to write, my own blog, right? Remember, in this particular case, I'm going to create a title for my blog or for my content with the main keywords towards the front. I'll use synonyms as much as possible. I'll use interesting words and numbers to get clicks, okay? And I'll use a maximum of 60 characters to prevent the title getting truncated in the search engine result page, right? So I go in and here's my new title. My new title is 6 Factors to Consider in 2022 when Assessing How Well an Air Purifier Works. That is the title that I'm going to use for, as opposed to, do air purifiers actually work? As opposed to, are air purifiers worth it? Do I need an air purifier? As opposed to, is an air purifier worth it? Okay. I am feeding the algorithm numbers and dates to let it know this is in 2022. I'm giving you numbers, all right, to let you know what exactly I'm going to be talking about, and I organize it. Now let's write the blog. Okay. So I go into a program called copy.ai. And remember, 6 factors to consider in 2022 when assessing how well an air purifier works. I go ahead and I write my keywords. Air purifier, control allergies and asthma, remove odors, remove smoke, remove harmful toxins. My tone that I want is professional. I generate content. Okay. And now, it generates the outline. I let Copy AI do it, and then I'll revise as needed. Here it is. It's created 6, because I said 6 factors. So it created 6 factors for me. I'll review them. If they're good, I'll keep them. And I go ahead and I, generate the next talking points. Let Copy AI perform that task and I'll revise as needed. There it goes. It's created the talking points for each of those outline points. Then I'll let it generate the content. Again, it generated that content and I'll revise as needed. I'll quickly review this through each of these points. And then finally, before I create the blog post, I noticed, remember how the previous articles had over 1,500 words? Here I'm at 800 some words. Okay, that's too few. I need more words. So I keep here, you see this, regenerate content. I keep clicking regenerate content. Okay, and regenerate content to add the word count. So now I've actually got 1,256 words up from 808 words. And this blog was now written in 2 minutes, FYI, okay? So now I've got the blogs. Now I have, rinse and repeat around those topics. All these, I just, I pretty much just regurgitate the whole process for any of these topics over here. Or remember, I talked about Answer the Public. When I looked at Answer the Public and I got the CSV file, basically all I did was a frequency run to see what were the questions that were run most frequently. Now I've even got a whole list of topics that I could write blogs for. Okay. Because once I do that, the whole idea here, quick summary. I talked about how to find your keywords. I talked about how to research the keywords. I talked about where to place the keywords once you've found them. Okay. And then I talked about how to use the keywords once you've actually got them to write content to put in your blogs so that you'll figure out more highly, okay, in SERP. All right. Now, interestingly enough, did you know that, in the time, that just today, meaning last night, yesterday, there were 218 million, 210,000 Google searches and 213,000 blogs that were written yesterday. And interestingly enough, the total number of websites that were added in the 6 hours that it took me, okay, to write this presentation, it added 99,617 websites in those 6 hours. Okay. So this is why search is just very important, because this is getting to be a very, very competitive field. And in order to do that, we have to understand, search intent and finding keywords. Once you find keywords, where do you place them? Once you find them, how do you use them in content, and so forth.